They came with words like fire and light, wrapped in law and superiority. Called us beasts, animals, unable to speak their sacred dialects. So we said nothing. Not when they burned our cities. Not when they caged our people. We stayed silent, studied every syllable, and waited. Until the day we spoke back, in their holy tongue, and every empire that called us animal began to die screaming. The day the sky tore open, the Valari called it routine termination. Another failed world. Another infestation purged. They floated high above Earth, their cleansing fleet arranged in perfect symmetry, golden hulls, crystalline engines humming with legal sanctity. No fear. No resistance expected. Earth, after all, was classified as non-sentient. Animal class? Wildlife preserve. Sealed, silenced, forgotten? But something was wrong. The first wave of orbital drones never checked in. The second wave, a strike pod of elite linguists and drone escorts, went dark 10 minutes after atmospheric descent. The fleet captain, High Order Zyrax, dismissed it as turbulence interference. He adjusted his robes, activated the transmission sphere, and began the official declaration. This is the Valari Dominion. Your time of mindless chaos has concluded. You are unfit to speak. Unfit to reason. You are. A sharp tone cut him off. Not static. Not jamming. A voice. Clear, calm, surgically precise. You're late. Silence followed. On every Valari ship, officers froze. The language was unmistakable. Prime accordance, their holiest linguistic tier. Codified by the first tongue. Forbidden to outsiders. Impossible for animals. High Order Zyrax leaned forward, mouth dry. Who said that? The voice returned, laced with cruelty. The animals you forgot. The fleet's command AI stuttered. Dozens of screens flickered. Status reports blinked red. Ward packs offline. Logic error, speech conflict. On the jungle surface below, in the ruins of what was once Sao Paulo, Commander Elias Ward stood before a silent array of satellite dishes, makeshift but brutal in precision. His hands hovered over the lexicon pad, ancient tech laced with modern vengeance. He didn't smile. Stage 1 complete, murmured the comms officer beside him. They took the bait. Ward nodded. Deploy the voice kill. Above them, the Valari flagship received a burst transmission in encrypted accordance grammar. It wasn't a sentence. It was a linguistic virus, wrapped in perfect structure. The AI attempted to parse it, then spiraled into contradiction. On deck, Valari soldiers screamed as targeting systems activated without command. Drones realigned. One by one, the golden ships turned, on each other. Ward watched through a cracked visor. You wanted silence, he whispered. We gave it to you. For 30 years. He remembered the fires. The orbital bombardments. The caged survivors. He remembered screaming into the sky, a boy who didn't understand why no one answered. Then learning. Studying. Understanding. And one day speaking, not just fluently, but lethally. One of the fleet's secondary command ships attempted to transmit and override. Ward's team intercepted it mid-broadcast and twisted the syntax, feeding it back with a mirrored recursive loop. The override turned into a shutdown. Lights died. Engines dimmed. High Order Zyrax stumbled to the comms altar. Accordance enforcement. Emergency Tier 1 distress. Elias Ward's voice broke through again. This time, amplified. Do you understand what you did? You labeled us beasts. Not because we couldn't speak, but because we spoke differently. He walked through the underground lexicon bunker, eyes fixed on the screen as Valari's ships broke formation. Fire bloomed in space. You killed our diplomats. Burned our books. Blocked our signals. And when we screamed, you called it noise. One Valari ship attempted to flee. It didn't get far. Human-modified drones latched onto its hull, playing a song, an actual melody, built in accordance phonetics. The ship's AI processed it, then executed its own crew. Ward continued. So we listened. To every transmission. Every law. Every goddamn word you made sacred. We studied your holy language. Learned your tones. Your cadence. Then we weaponized it. The flagship finally cut visual feeds. Cyrax, trembling, whispered to his aide, "It's not possible. They're animals." From Earth, Ward gave the final phrase. A closure line, used only in Dominion legal executions. Meant to end debate. Irrevocable. "We reject your classification. We pronounce ourselves higher." All Valari AI paused. They were not programmed to accept judgment from below. But the phrase had perfect syntax. Legal structure. Cognitive supremacy, recognized. Systems collapsed. Drones ceased to function. Ships fell from orbit like burning angels. One voice echoed across all frequencies. Elias Ward's. "You called us less because you couldn't understand us. Now we speak in your own tongue. And every word is a verdict." Above, debris rained. Below, silence remained. But not fear. Purpose. Ward lowered the mic. "Begin ground sweep. Phase 2. A soldier approached, voice trembling with awe. "Sir, we didn't even fire a weapon." Ward turned, eyes cold. "Yes, we did. We fired the one thing they never thought we'd have." The soldier blinked. "What's that?" Ward stared upward. "Language." "They've stopped transmitting," said Corporal Ness. Her hands hovered over the comms console, eyes locked on the dead signal feed from orbit. "The entire Valari fleet. Not just the cleansing unit. All of it." Galaxy-wide silence. Commander Elias Ward didn't look up. He was finishing the second phrase. Every sentence had to be perfect. Not just grammatically, structurally. Syllabic stress, melodic cadence, harmonic resonance. Prime accordance wasn't just a language. It was a weapon. You didn't speak it. You loaded it, aimed it, and fired it straight into the mind of the enemy. "They'll adapt," he said. "They always adapt. Which means we hit them again. Harder. Shorter. Sharper." He pressed the activation rune and the phrase launched. High in orbit, the last Valari cruiser, voice triumphant, received the input. Inside, the command AI recognized the phrase as a paradox construct. The kind of speech that Valari priests once used to induce religious trances. Now, it just made targeting systems see every crew member as an invalid input. The ship shut itself down mid-battle, believing it had violated a core tenet of galactic law. Another piece of golden junk began falling from the sky. "That's 8 ships down," Ness whispered. "And we haven't touched a gun." Ward finally stood. "They thought we were just meat that screamed. Let's show them what happens when that meat learns how to whisper." He walked to the central chamber, where the rest of the Lexicon Corps were broadcasting the third protocol across the system. Valari colonies, outposts, and listening posts, all tuned to prime accordance. All of them ripe for destruction by phonetic corruption. Lieutenant Breck's approach, armored head to toe in scavenged alien tech, eyes hollow. "We've got confirmation from the Sirius relay. The Accord's entire legal AI matrix just entered recursive lockdown. They tried to declare emergency jurisdiction. The system flagged their speech as invalid." Ward smirked. "You ever see a priest try to pray in a language that doesn't believe in him?" Brex gave a dry laugh, short and grim. "No, sir. Now you have." Another signal came through. This one from Valari Space itself. A council broadcast. Scrambled. "Emergency level clearance. Earth designate." The voice croaked, distorted. "Valari High Council seeks audience. Clarify intentions. Clarify cognitive level." Ward didn't respond. Not yet. He let the silence stretch. The longer they waited, the more uncertain the Valari would become. That was the flaw in their empire, their belief in structure. Their dependence on symmetry. Break the rhythm, and they'd implode trying to restore it. He turned to Ness. "Feed me the next phrase." "Invocation class." Ness hesitated. "Sir, that's reserved for galactic declarations." If we use it. I know what it is, Ward snapped. Feed it. She did. Ward stepped to the console, took a breath, and spoke. 12 words. Each one tuned precisely. Each one dipped in venom and fire. Each one wrapped in decades of silence and unspoken fury. They went out into the dark. On Valera Prime, the council chambers exploded into chaos. Systems couldn't parse the phrase. AI support collapsed. Broadcast orders failed. Planetary defense shields activated, then deactivated, then rebooted into null state. The phrase Ward sent wasn't just speech. It was a declaration of ascendancy. A species-level promotion, delivered not by request, but by dominance. In their own system, by their own laws, humanity had just claimed legal superiority. And there was no appeal process. Ward leaned back. That should confuse them. Brex nodded. Sir, if I may, they never saw us coming. No. Because they were never looking. He stepped away from the console. You don't look into the cage for a threat. You look up. They thought we were below them. But the thing about cages. He looked at the ceiling as another piece of flaming debris fell past. You never check if something inside has learned how to pick the lock. The broadcast room went silent. No alarms. No alerts. Nothing. Ward waited. Then it came. Not a military transmission. Not a legal one. A personal one. From a Valari elder. A voice high-pitched, strained, cracking with something Ward had never heard from their kind. Desperation? Human entity designated Elias Ward, this is Elder Prime Jekta. You are in breach of Accord Treaty law. Cease all transmissions. Open formal negotiations. We recognize your capacity. Capacity. They couldn't even say sentience. That word wasn't in their diplomatic lexicon for Earth. Ward leaned into the mic. We tried talking. We used every dialect we had. You refused to listen. Now? We speak in yours. He paused. And every word is fire. He ended the call. Ness turned. What now? Now we remind the galaxy what happens when you confuse silence with stupidity. He picked up a data rod, slid it into the central slot. It activated the final echo, a phrase so tightly constructed, so dangerously accurate, that the AI overseeing the Accord's galactic communication array had locked it away in fear of misuse. Ward had re-engineered it. The moment it played, thousands of satellites began collapsing protocols. Every system still tied to Accord legal linguistics entered speech cascade. Meaning collapsed. Order reversed. Drones fired on commanders. Stations airlocked their own priests. The Valari weren't just losing the war. They were losing meaning. Without language, they couldn't command. Without command, they couldn't fight. Without fight? They were just animals. The room flickered. Ward's team watched as comms died across the board, not from jamming. From irrelevance. There was nothing left to say. Brex swallowed. Is it over? Ward looked to the stars. Emergency override failed, Ness said, eyes wide. They tried to reclaim broadcast authority across all tiers. The system rejected them. Language mismatch. Commander Ward folded his arms, unmoved. Of course it rejected them. They don't own their words anymore. Valari law was built on controlled expression. Every word had to be sanctioned, every phrase indexed and linked to the hierarchy. When Ward activated the invocation phrase, he didn't just declare human sentience. He rewrote the legal foundation of their linguistic caste system. That single sentence destabilized half a civilization. Brex was pacing now. We've got multiple colony signals breaking down. Accord governors are requesting neutral arbitration. Some of them are trying to abandon the Accord entirely. They won't get far, Ward said. Once the language collapses, identity goes with it. If you can't name yourself, you don't exist in their system. A technician nearby gasped. Sir, new signal. Military code. Level 1 distress. Coming from the High Temple of Accordance. They're broadcasting a null-frequency plea. Ward raised an eyebrow. Let's hear it. The voice crackled in. Older. Stately. A council member, likely. His words were measured, almost mechanical. To the human faction, Accord recognizes breach of interpretive sovereignty. We request communicative truce. Ward leaned toward the mic and responded in flawless, ancient Accord syntax. Request acknowledged. Clarify intent, surrender or strategy? There was silence. The voice returned, shakier this time. Your syntax is too pure. Your pronunciation is exact. That's the part you never understood, Ward said coldly. You thought speech made you superior. But it's comprehension that makes us dangerous. He signaled the tech. Patch into the temple's linguistic AI core. Time to deliver the sermon. They accessed the temple's main channel, reserved for species class announcements, meant to echo across thousands of worlds. Valari priests had used it for millennia to declare cultural truths. Now it would carry one more. Ward took the mic and began. Your empire rests on a lie. A lie you baked into law, song, and scripture. That the power to speak determines the right to rule. You built a civilization on the backs of those who didn't share your frequency and called them lesser. But all this time, we listened. We dissected your phonetics. Memorized your logic. And now, with your own sacred tongue, we say this, Earth speaks. He paused only for breath. The speech continued with rising tempo. We don't request your approval. We revoke your authority. We reject your classification. We declare ourselves first-tongue ascendants. The temple's AI flared red. Unauthorized claim detected. Cross-reference in progress. Verification confirmed. The system obeyed its oldest rule. The one who speaks in pure accordance, uncontested, may claim supremacy. Brex stared at the console. Sir, every system just updated. Accordance has listed Earth as the dominant linguistic species. Ness looked stunned. Wait, that means... We own the language now, Ward said flatly. And without it, they're mute. And if they're mute, they're nothing. The technician pointed. Valera Prime just went dark. Internal systems shutting down. They tried to issue a planetary override, but it came back flagged, invalid speaker ID. A new voice came through. Younger. Desperate. We yield. We concede language primacy. Please stop. Ward stared into the receiver. That's not how it works. You declared that only the tongue of the enlightened may lead. We simply became fluent in extinction. He ended the call. Brex wiped his face with a trembling hand. Sir, reports are flooding in, drones are going offline, translation protocols are corrupted, species under Accord rule are rioting. The Valari system is collapsing. Ward exhaled through his nose, calm. Collapse was always inevitable. All we did was say the words they feared most. But what about the others? Ness asked. The species under Valari protection? The ones who didn't ask for any of this? Ward looked up slowly. Then they better learn new words. Fast. A second technician called out. Sir, one more thing. There's an old file pinging in our archive. Old Earth transmission, deep code. Embedded linguistic template dated before the Accord's foundation. Want me to scrub it? Ward walked over, curious. No. Open it. The screen flickered. A simple voice recording played, distorted but human. This is Earth's Central Linguistic Archive, year 2186. Project Sapiens, attempting to launch a pan-species communication protocol seeded into autonomous drones. Target, unknown deep space lifeforms. Goal, peaceful linguistic exchange. Everyone in the room went still. The message continued. Note, early dialect structure borrows from experimental logic trees and recursive cognition. Language will evolve independently in recipient systems. Estimated influence window, 500 years. Brex choked out a breath. Sir, it's ours. Ward whispered. We didn't just break their code. Ness finished the sentence. We created it. The Valari language, the Accord's sacred structure, hadn't been alien. It had been the runaway child of an old Earth experiment. It evolved, became law, became empire. Then turned back to its makers in ignorance. Ward looked back at the mic. Then this wasn't vengeance. It was reclamation. He transmitted one final phrase across the galactic spectrum, in every tier, every tongue. Earth is not rising. Earth was always here. You just forgot the sound of our voice. The galaxy had silenced its parents. But now, humanity had reminded it how to listen. The stars had gone quiet. Systems that once blazed with Valari dominion now flickered like dying embers. Ward stood before the central comms node, fingers poised over the final sequence. He didn't speak yet. Silence had power, and he let it hang, heavy and suffocating, across every listening station in the dying accord. Across the galaxy, military leaders pleaded with broken AI. Trade fleets stalled mid-warp, unable to issue travel directives without certified linguistic syntax. Whole planets descended into panic, not because they were under fire, but because the voice they trusted to rule had gone mute. Valari civilization was unraveling, syllable by syllable. Final transmission queue ready, Ness reported. Her voice was calm but raw. She hadn't slept in 30 hours. None of them had. Ward nodded. Where's the last stronghold? Vexor Delta. Still resisting the reclassification. Local systems running on legacy code. They're holding out. She hesitated. They're broadcasting sermons. Teaching their civilians to speak the original dialect. Trying to recreate purity through memory. They're clinging to ghosts, Ward said. Memory doesn't protect you when the laws forget who you are. Breck stepped in. We can strike them directly. Orbital pulse, full saturation. End it the old way. No. Ward's voice was sharp. That's what they expect. That's what they used on us. If we finish this with brute force, they'll call it regression. Proof we were never sentient. We don't destroy their words, we make them mean something else. He keyed in the phrase, 39 syllables. A hybrid dialect. A chord root structure interwoven with obsolete Earth languages, Latin, Urdu, even the tonal inflections of Old Inuit. Words meant to fracture binary thinking. Logic splits. Cognitive bleed. This one's different, Ness said softly. This one's personal, Ward replied. He activated the sequence. The phrase moved like a virus through the net. Vexor Delta's command systems flared, accepting the structure as sacred input. It triggered emergency recall on all sermons, labeled them invalidated content. Clerics were flagged as false speakers. Worship centers sealed their own doors. Public AI initiated a new faith directive, one that cited Earth as the progenitor tongue. Civilians woke to find their textbooks rewritten, their prayers redirected. Valari symbols dissolved into Terran glyphs. The language they had memorized from birth now ended with Earth's stamp. Brex's console lit up. They're trying to override manually. Typing out counter syntax. Doesn't matter. The system's treating them like corrupted users. Can't even open basic command menus. They'll beg for a voice soon, Ward said. And we'll be the only ones left with one. A new signal arrived, untranslated. Screaming. It was from Vexor Delta's planetary council. Brex played it. The voice crackled through, high-pitched and broken. You've inverted the law. You desecrate the sacred accords. You've taken our name. We demand cessation. Ward responded instantly. You don't get to demand anything. You erased our species with a sentence. Now we unmake you with a word. You worship the tongue. We mastered it. There was a pause. Then a second voice, older, fractured. What do you want? Ward didn't flinch. I want you to live. I want your children to speak our language. I want your archives to list Earth not as a reserve, but as origin. I want every planet that ever dismissed a human to wake up in a galaxy ruled by our grammar. You'll rewrite history. No, Ward said. I'll correct it. Brex looked up. We've received auto-recognition from 12 systems. They've converted to Earth protocol voluntarily. They'll fall in line, Ward said. Or fall apart. Ness frowned. Sir, what about the Accord remnants? Some of the old colonies are still trying to fight. They've started building new dialects. Divergent phonetics. Language mutation warfare. Then we spread faster, Ward answered. We make it easier to speak Earth than anything else. We infect them with simplicity. You mean, let them think they're translating us, when they're just joining us? Exactly. There was a long pause in the chamber. The war wasn't over, not in the traditional sense. No bodies lay in the streets. No smoke trailed from shattered cities. But the damage was deeper than any bomb. Every faith, every law, every power structure that depended on language now served the one species that had been caged for being silent too long. Ward keyed in the final function, Universal Reclassification Broadcast. The AI hesitated for a moment, then accepted the command. A single word would echo across every network, every outpost, every archival data stream. It wasn't complex. It wasn't beautiful. It was a name. Earth. Brex whispered. You're making us gods. No, Ward said. I'm making us undeniable. He activated the sequence. It played once. The galaxy listened. No one spoke. The echoes faded. Not just from the speakers inside the command chamber, but across the stars. For the first time in living memory, every Accord-bound world, station, and satellite had heard the same word at the same time. No ceremony. No translation. No diplomatic filtration. Just a name that didn't ask for recognition, it seized it. Earth. Ward stepped away from the console as the last of the systems confirmed receipt. Over 20,000 nodes updated simultaneously, their language cores adjusting to the new linguistic route. Earth was no longer a silent zone. No longer a reserve. It was the source. The center. The origin of everything they thought was theirs. He didn't smile. He just breathed. Brex cleared his throat. Sir, incoming visual request. High Chancellor of the Accord's former seat. Surviving dignitaries. They want to negotiate. Ward didn't move. Play it. The screen came to life. 3 figures stood in ceremonial robes that no longer held meaning. Their eyes didn't carry anger. Not even hatred. Only disbelief. The Chancellor spoke. You've collapsed the Accord. Entire systems have defaulted to your constructs. We have no means to organize, no way to function. We cannot communicate even with each other. You took our words. Rewrote them into something alien. They were ours to begin with, Ward said. You just evolved from our echo. The Chancellor shook his head. That's impossible. Our ancestors formed accordance before your species was even spaceborne. Ward tapped a terminal and loaded the fragment. The old transmission. The seed code. He let it play, unlisted, unpolished. They heard it all, the distorted human voice, the Earth year, the launch directive of Project Sapiens. The declaration of peaceful linguistic seeding. A gift, not a weapon. You didn't find your language, Ward said. You inherited it. You twisted it into hierarchy. You weaponized complexity and punished anything that didn't conform to your syntax. The dignitaries stood frozen, their legacy disassembled by a 1,000-year-old voice they had never heard before. One of them whispered, Then, we are your creation. Ward nodded once. And now you face your creator. But we don't want you dead. We want you fluent. The Chancellor leaned in, a final flicker of resistance lighting his expression. So you demand fealty? Worship? No, Ward said. We demand that you learn. A pause. Brex cut in, reading real-time data. Sir, more systems coming online. The linguistic cores are adapting to the Earth schema automatically. Civilian interfaces are already converting to hybrid Terran dialects. Accord symbols are being redefined based on Earth grammatical logic. Ward turned from the display. Then we don't need their permission anymore. The system is updating itself. The Chancellor's voice faltered. You've erased us. Ward's gaze narrowed. No. You erased yourselves when you built an empire on sound and refused to hear others speak. We just gave your silence an ending. The dignitaries tried to respond, but the transmission collapsed under its own irrelevance. Their access credentials had already been downgraded. Their voice recognition clearance flagged as obsolete. Brex looked over. There's one more signal. It's from a rogue Accord AI cluster. Autonomous. Not linked to a council. It wants to speak directly to you. Ward gave a nod. The voice that came through was pure, metallic, unmarred by biological stutter. Commander Ward, you have completed an action forbidden by 27 galactic compacts. You have inverted the hierarchy of language. This action constitutes a structural rebellion against universal law. Ward didn't blink. Then let the law update. The AI continued. Do you intend to govern the galaxy? No, Ward said. We intend to liberate it. From the tyranny of a single sound. The AI paused. Then, do you understand what you've done? Ward walked slowly toward the edge of the platform, the comms still open. I understand you made the mistake of defining sentience through voice, through syntax, through ritual. But humanity, we understand something else. We understand meaning. You never asked what we meant. You only asked if we could repeat you. He took a breath, his voice lowering. We did more than repeat you. We perfected you. And then we buried you. The AI began to loop. A recursive conflict in its interpretation protocol, unable to process a species claiming linguistic authorship from beneath its own historical shadow. It disconnected itself in silence. Ness turned back to the main feed. Reconstruction reports are beginning. Some species are reaching out for direct human linguistic guidance. They're calling us the speakers. Brex looked baffled. We're teachers now? We were always teachers, Ward said. We just ran out of students who listened. He keyed in a final data stream, an untraceable, unsecured transmission sent across the former Accord expanse. It was one sentence. Simple. Contain no threats. No demands. Speak freely. That was the new law. No caste. No classification. No Accord seals. Every species could now build meaning the way Earth had, through failure, through pain, through rebellion. Through silence, and through speech. Ness exhaled. So what now? Ward paused. Then he looked up, as if hearing something distant. We listen. Brex frowned. To what? Ward gave the first hint of a smile in days. To the galaxy, learning how to talk again.